Encryption is one way that businesses can help secure the information of their clients and of their company online. By encryption, this is where you transform data into ciphertext that's readable only by the sender and receiver. It helps store information and the transformation of information.
Historically, encryption was widely used only by the military, but with the advent of the internet, almost everybody needs it. Encryption is a way to ensure privacy by changing your online messages into sort of a secret code. Most web browsers automatically encrypt text when connecting to a secure server. That is, a web address beginning with HTTPS. The messages or files are scrambled as they travel in between computers, but then the message is decrypted when it arrives at its destination. So if you bought something online, the sensitive information like your address, credit card, or phone number is usually encrypted. But not all the information exchanged online is encrypted, and not all encryption methods are created equal. Like 64-bit encryption used to be all the rage, but nowadays 120-bit is the standard. And even that will surely change and get better as time goes on. And it should. Unencrypted internet exchanges are not only accessible by virtually anyone, but they can be available for years, and possibly on servers that could change ownership or become compromised eventually. So it might sound mysterious, but encryption is your friend. I'm Holly for Tech News Daily.
In symmetric key cryptography, the sender and the receiver use the same digital key to encrypt and decrypt whatever message is being sent over the network. It requires a different set of keys for each transaction. Public key cryptography uses two mathematically related digital keys. One is a public key which is widely disseminated to everyone, and the second is the private key which is kept secret only by the owner. Both keys are used to encrypt and decrypt the message. But one key used to encrypt the message, or once the key is used to encrypt the message, the same key cannot be used to decrypt the message. The sender uses the recipient's public key to encrypt the message, and the recipient then uses the private key that they were provided with to decrypt it.
Whether it's chit-chat or about very sensitive information about our jobs, most of us depend on the internet while we communicate. Unfortunately, there might be other individuals with malicious intentions who also want to reach this information, which is only supposed to be shared between you and the receiver of this message. So how can you know if this information reaches the receiver without being copied or stolen? Kate wants to send her friend John this message, but she is scared that someone can catch this message on its way to John and get a hold of this information. First, Kate locks her message with a key which only she has the copy of. So when she sends this to John, no one that Kate doesn't want can reach this message. There is one problem though. Since John doesn't have the key to the lock, it is impossible for him to reach the message and decrypt the code. So Kate needs to send the key to John via internet again so that John can see the message. This type of encryption is called symmetric encryption. But be careful, it has several problems to it. The message could be stolen by the person, and it could easily be opened by also stealing the key. For a long time, it was thought that this problem of key exchange was impossible to solve, until some people came up with a new type of encryption, asymmetric encryption. So this is how it works. Kate locks the message with her public key and sends this to John via internet. Then when John receives this message, which is locked with Kate's public key, he also locks this message with his public key and sends the message back to Kate. Now Kate can open the message with her private key and send it back to John. And lastly, John receives the message with his own public key on it. He decodes the message with his private key, and he is now able to understand it. So the message never crossed the internet without a lock, and no one except Kate and John accessed the message. Ta-da! Problem solved. But wait! So what if Kate's mother-in-law pretends to be John while she puts her own public key and sends the message back to Kate for her to remove the public key? Then what would happen? Thank you. you for watching this presentation about private and public key encryption. Whether it's chit-chat or about very sensitive information about our jobs, most of us depend on the internet while we communicate. Unfortunately, there might be other individuals with malicious intentions who also want to reach this information, which is only supposed to be shared between you and the receiver of this message. So how can you know if this information reaches the receiver without being copied or stolen? Kate wants to send her friend John this message, but she's scared that someone can catch this message on its way to John and get a hold of this information. First, Kate locks her message with a key which only she has the copy of. So when she sends this to John, no one that Kate doesn't want can reach this message. There is one problem though. Since John doesn't have the key to the lock, it is impossible for him to reach the message and decrypt the code. So Kate needs to send the key to John via internet again so that John can see the message. This type of encryption is called symmetric encryption. But be careful, it has several problems to it. The message could be stolen by the person and it could easily be opened by also stealing the key. For a long time, it was thought that this problem of key exchange was impossible to solve, until some people came up with a new type of encryption, asymmetric encryption. So this is how it works. Kate locks the message with her public key and sends this to John via internet. Then when John receives this message, which is locked with Kate's public key, he also locks this message with his public key and sends the message back to Kate. Now Kate can open the message with her private key and send it back to John. And lastly, John receives the message with his own public key on it. He decodes the message with his private key and he is now able to understand it. So the message never crossed the internet without a lock and no one except Kate and John accessed the message. Ta-da! Problem solved. But wait, so what if Kate's mother-in-law pretends to be John while she puts her own public key and sends the message back to Kate for her to remove the public key? Then what would happen? Thank you for watching this presentation about private and public key encryption.
Of course, there are limits to encryption solutions. PKI is not effective against insiders, for example, like employees, and the protection of private keys by individuals may be haphazard. And there's no guarantee that verifying the computer of the merchant is secure. Many organizations now are protecting their networks using things like firewalls, proxy servers, intrusion detection systems, and intrusion prevention systems. You can continually protect your servers and your clients by always upgrading and enhancing your security, and of course by using various antivirus software. As mentioned earlier in the lecture though, installing security systems is one thing, but you must have management policies and business procedures which also help with safeguarding your company's security. Worldwide, companies are spending more than $71 billion on security hardware, software, and services. Managing that risk, though, includes finding the appropriate technology, implementing effective management policies, and trying to lobby for public laws and enforcing of laws with regard to computer and online security. In developing an e-commerce security plan, you should of course perform some sort of risk assessment, develop your security policy, develop a plan for implementing your security policies, create a secure organization, and once in a while perform a security audit. Laws and public policy play a very important role in trying to secure the online environment for many businesses. Laws that give authorities tools help to identify, trace, and prosecute cyber criminals. Locally, I am not sure what laws we have on the books, but it's definitely something that we could investigate to see what laws we have or what laws are being discussed to protect the online environment for local consumers. In terms of the payment systems that you generally see consumers using, of course, consumers will use credit cards and debit cards online. These come with certain limitations. Of course, there's the security aspect of using your cards online, the risk for the merchant in case people are using stolen cards, the cost that is assigned to processing cards online, and of course, the aspect of social equity. Not everyone may have a credit card that they can use online, so this will definitely cut out certain consumers. To counteract that, though, we have alternative online payment systems. So for example, PayPal, and other alternatives would include Amazon Payments, Google Wallet, and the Bill Me Later transaction. More and more with the advancements in technology, mobile devices are being used as a way to pay for transactions. One of the most popular will be the Apple Pay, which was recently developed and recently launched by Apple, and more companies are making their product line or their businesses accepting of Apple Pay. Again, you also have PayPal, Square, and Google Wallet. You then also have digital cash and virtual currencies. One example of digital cash is what we refer to as Bitcoin, which we're going to see an example of or explain in a bit. And then, of course, you have virtual currencies. These are the currency, quote unquote, that exist in virtual worlds like Second Life and Facebook credits, which allow you to purchase certain things online.
What is Bitcoin? Bitcoin is the first decentralized digital currency. Bitcoins are digital coins you can send through the internet. Compared to other alternatives, Bitcoins have a number of advantages. Bitcoins are transferred directly from person to person via the net, without going through a bank or clearinghouse. This means that the fees are much lower. You can use them in every country, your account cannot be frozen, and there are no prerequisites or arbitrary limits. Let's look at how it works. Bitcoins are generated all over the internet by anybody running a free application called a Bitcoin miner. Mining requires a certain amount of work for each block of coins. This amount is automatically adjusted by the network such that Bitcoins are always created at a predictable and limited rate. Your Bitcoins are stored in your digital wallet, which might look familiar if you use online banking. When you transfer Bitcoins, an electronic signature is added. After a few minutes, the transaction is verified by a miner and permanently and anonymously stored in the network. The Bitcoin software is completely open source and anybody can review the code. Bitcoin is changing finance the same way the web changed publishing. When everyone has access to a global market, great ideas flourish. Let's look at some examples of how Bitcoins are already used today. You can purchase video games, gifts, books, servers, and alpaca socks. Several currency exchanges exist where you can trade your Bitcoins for dollars, euros, and more. Bitcoins are a great way for small businesses and freelancers to get noticed. It doesn't cost anything to start accepting them. There are no chargebacks or fees, and you'll get additional business from the Bitcoin economy. For your first Bitcoins and more information, visit weusecoins.com.
And we're going to continue our discussion about Bitcoin in our forum this week. We're going to look at what are some of the benefits of using a digital currency, or the risks, what are the political and the economic repercussions of a digital currency, and if you or anyone you know has ever used Bitcoin. Again, for any questions on this week's lecture, please feel free to leave those questions in our discussion forum.